Coogs house, break out every cliche, record book, metaphor, everything. Houston's playing in the national title tonight.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach, Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or a hater that came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first, second, third, fourth listen today. We're playing on a lot of episodes right now. Today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at TurboTax. It is April. We got more on that later. But man, Houston finds themselves in the national championship game. Finds themselves, I don't even feel like the right word, after what happened over the weekend. And this a little bit shorter episode is really just dedicated to looking forward to Florida. We always preview these games. We know this is the last one. We had a crossover with Brandon came out last night. We got a crossover with Drake at Locked On Big 12 comes out today about the weekend. We'll talk about recapping the season and all the things in the past that was. But like at the end of the day, there's still one more game to be played. And I loved Houston's demeanor about this. I want to talk about San Antonio and advantages later, but I also just want to talk some about who Florida is here at the start, because Florida's really good. And when I watched them a couple times, I did watch their Tennessee game, which feels like a crazy outlier, just some points they scored. And then I watched a Tennessee game that Florida won. So twice against Tennessee, but a fairly like opponent. And then also watched them against honestly, Alabama, because that was a game they got to run up and down and do their own thing, and also a common opponent. If you go back to November, Florida's really good. They remind me of like Gonzaga, of Arizona. They're like the next Pokemon evolution of those teams, right? Same kind of incredible pace, good size, a really talented guard that gets the job done. SEC tournament champs, 4 losses were Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, and Georgia, but they beat Tennessee 2 other times, once in the regular season for the home and home, and then in the conference tournament, they also beat Missouri in the conference tournament, so avenged a couple of those losses throughout the way. They had a big comeback win over Texas Tech in the Elite Eight. They beat Auburn in the Final Four, also down at halftime in that one, had to dig their way out of that. Todd Golden's in his 3rd year there at Florida after being at University of San Francisco for a few years before that. And he's got a really talented squad. Florida's got a lot of NIL money and does the rebuilding roster thing pretty quickly. And they're able to put together a squad that fits the style of play he wants to do really, really well. Really, really impressed by this team in a lot of ways. Obviously, I think there's ways that Houston can take advantage of them, and we'll talk about that in the episode as well. There's no team I think Houston can't beat, but there are lots of the teams that I think in a given single elimination kind of night can have their way too. Like that's the way that goes, and I think this is going to be a really excellent basketball game between 2 real Titan-feeling kind of teams. As far as who Florida's got, they got 4 different double-digit scoring kind of guys. They spread the wealth pretty well because they score a whole heck of a lot of points. They are top 70 in terms of pace of play, meaning possessions per game. Similar teams in terms of that the Houston's played this year. Arizona's 49th, Gonzaga is 42nd, Alabama is 1st. Now, Oklahoma State and UCF are actually also both in the top 15, but that feels more like people are running on them when you watch them play, and also bring in their record and stuff like that, than the other way around, whereas Arizona, Gonzaga, and Alabama had such good records. It feels like they're forcing the tempo there. Arizona, Florida broke 80 points in 31 of their 39 games, only have 1 game below 70, although that game they did only score 44 in the loss to Tennessee. So they are human. They can come back down to earth in a lot of ways as far as the scoring goes. Interesting that the way they're put together, they've got elite shooting in the backcourt and a really big bully-sized front court. We'll talk about matchups in a second, but Clayton, Martin, and Richard can all shoot the 3 ball very well. And then as far as the bigs go, Condon and Chinilu are both like good bigs Houston's seen before this season, but like on the high end of guys that Houston's seen this season down low. They're both, we talk about Houston and hype a lot going into the Duke game as well. They're both taller than Houston. Condon is 6'11", and Chinulu is 6'11", listed. I bet he's actually closer to 6'10", but whatever. The truth is, though, is that these guys use it to their advantage in a way that really tests that whole wingspan theory Houston's been operating on for a long time now. I think it'll work out fine for Houston because the agility Houston plays with and the speed, the blitzes, etc. What they're trying to do on offense a whole lot, though, is a lot of two-man games with backside variations with Clayton and Condon, and the backside variations are popping guys open to catch and shoot threes or catch and drive and kick themselves, right? And that is really because they have these hyper elite scorers, I should say, that are, tops the tops. Walter Clayton Jr. is, I guess he's a 6'2" senior, so we'll see what he does. He's as impressive a guard as Houston's seen this year. And not just because we talked about Arizona as a comparable guy, but he feels a lot like Caleb Love, where he's got a little bit of a bleep you attitude about him. When he scores the ball, he shoots a lot of shots that you're just like, what is he doing? And it goes in. And that's not to say that Houston can't do anything about it. I'm never going to say that about a guy, but he is impressive, and he is an impressive guy that Houston's got to find a way to get in front of. Really fun scout to get ready for, actually, in that sense. It's a fun guy to watch play. And there's comps to all kinds of guys across the history of college basketball, sort of what he can do. I do think it's worth pointing out that he had 30 in the Elite Eight game and broke 30 again in the Final Four game. His first player to do that since Bobby Hurley. For as bad a basketball coach as Bobby Hurley was, he was a pretty good college basketball player once upon a time at Duke. Way back in the way back. Oh, Duke, remember that one? No, they're gone now. I see this game shaping out to be a styles make fights kind of game, though. Houston plays a slow pace, an ugly pace, a beat you up physical kind of pace. And honestly, I think both teams can do what the other team wants to. I think Houston can run fast and score a lot of points. We've seen them break 80 before. I don't think that that's something that's out of their wheelhouse. If it gets to be that kind of a track meet, I think Florida's got the size to play an efficient game on offense and really try and wear you down in longer half-court sets and make tough shots if that's what it comes to. I think both teams can play the other style, but how the game goes is going to mean one of those teams is a lot more comfortable playing that style. I think a big thing you're going to see here is who takes care of the basketball too. And we get to why I think Houston might actually do that better in just a second, because I think that there are edges here that Houston's got. I want to go over those in 1 second. Before we get too far, today is a short show, but it's still brought to you by our buddies over at TurboTax, because this is April. We're into April, playing on Monday in April, and TurboTax is here to help you this April tax season as well. This is a message from Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting, wondering, and worrying if you were ever going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, when you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file in every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All just so you get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, wondering, worrying, any of that. This is what taxes are now. Get an expert at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only available in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Park Rangers, Locked on Coogs here, talking about Houston, Florida, matching up in the NCAA championship game on Monday night. And man, that's just so nice. Okay, I'll say it one more time. It's so much fun to say. Houston meets Florida in the NCAA championship game on Monday night. Wow. All right. So nice to be here for Houston. It's been 41 years since Houston played in this game. 40 tournaments. Obviously, they didn't play in 2020. Felt like you were close a year ago before he got hurt. Felt like you were close in 2021. Felt like you were close in 2022. You felt like you were close. I'd argue you got an NCAA in 2023 as well. But you're finally here. You got to make the most of it. And there's a handful of matchups that you got to do it. Right. And the big question for everyone is who guards Walter Clayton Jr. Guy's a flamethrower, 18.5 points per game, had 35 in the semifinal against Auburn. And truth, I almost feel like that kind of, talking just about the Auburn game kind of downplays the kind of year he's had. He does also get 4 assists and that kind of spits the ball out when he needs to. But he is the kind of guy that just gets hot in a hurry, does not need a lot of separation, does not need a lot of room. And you just can't at any point in the 40 minutes let the kid get comfortable. I think Houston's going to start with Milos Uzan on him, both because he's a point guard type. He's a more scoring point guard than Milos has been most of the games this year. But you saw Milos really raise his level of play against guys like Caleb Love, Ryan Denbard, frankly, Zakai Ziegler. You saw him really dominate those matchups. I don't think he does the same kind of discrepancy in his domination of Walter Clayton. But I do know that the run he's had against point guards makes me confident that he can do this. The other thing is the guards that have given Milos trouble are the 6'5", 6'6" guys. Clayton's 6'2" and change, round up 6'3", right? And so Milos doesn't have to lack that there. I also think you'll see stretches with Malik on him just from a speed and length kind of thing. Malik will have one job on those instances as well. But truthfully, aside from making him make tough shots off the bounce, this is the kind of guy that you're going to blitz on ball screens. And we'll talk about why you have to peel out of those pretty quickly in a second. But truthfully, you're just trying to get the ball out of Condon's hands as much as you can and really force the issue elsewhere so you can play one-on-one coverage as much as possible. I don't think you double him outside of blitzing the ball screen. First of all, I don't know that it's necessarily been super effective for other people. I don't know that's something that they've needed or has worked for them a whole lot. But I do think that they can get open shots elsewhere when they double, so you stay one-on-one with them. And kind of like you did with Cooper Flagg for a lot of the Duke game where you just said, hey, he's going to have to get 50, 27, 28, 30. It's not going to do it, right? And so I think that that's what you'll see. Obviously, blitz the ball screen, force and pass, that kind of stuff. But in one-on-one situations, it's not going to be run to double and bail out on other guys for any stretch. Another guard for them, Elijah Martin. Elijah Martin shoots, make sure I get my numbers right here, 35.5% from 3 on 6 attempts per game. Really good shooter. He's the shorter of the 2 off guards, and so I think he gets LJ Cryer. As far as the matchup goes, he's not a gigantic threat to get in the lane off the bounce. Cryer's got some sturdy legs on him as far as keeping a firm base, and so I think they'll be okay there on that matchup. Elijah Martin, though, is at 14.5 points per game scorer. He's really good as well. I think, though, it's going to be LJ because the other guard matchups me Will Richard. I think that's going to be Emmanuel Sharp. He's also shooting over 5.5 threes per game, also shooting 35% from behind the arc. He's getting about 13 points per game, a couple less attempts, but he's a little bit bigger guy. He's more like 6'4", and I think you want Emmanuel size there. Otherwise, I think he'd attack LJ off the bounce. I could see those guys being interchangeable. I could also see Malik and Terrence mixing up with them as well. I don't think that that's necessarily anything that I'm too horribly concerned about if we're playing Walter Clayton close and like we should and like we can in an effort and like a way that wins the game. I don't know that I'm necessarily worried about those guys going for 30. I do think, knock on wood, I do think, though, that they're good scorers and you need to have good defensive game plans for when they catch the ball on the opposite side of a set. The straw that stirs the drink. There's the saying. The straw that stirs the drink is Alex Condon, and he actually, I think, played poorly in the semifinal against Auburn against Janai Brome. And I think that, and I'll get to why I think that actually bodes well for Houston in a second, but I think he's the Jawan Roberts matchup. Jawan will be physical with him, gives him a couple inches of height, but has wingspan on him, and is athletic enough to keep up with him as he's doing handoffs and perimeter kind of stuff on the outside. Condon is not a big time 3-point attempts per game guy, but can let it fly, I guess. Stay within arm's length. But he's really a good passer, and he's a really good perimeter player in a lot of aspects that are not shooting. That's why I want J1 out there on him as opposed to Tugler. I also think, for what it's worth, is that as far as their forwards go, they're going to go to Condon when it's time to get something done, much like we had Jawan Roberts on Cooper Flagg for the final Duke offensive possession with any real chance to score. We had Jawan Roberts on Cooper Flagg down the stretch. I feel like it's kind of the same mentality in this one, is that I want him on there. I also think for what it's worth is that it's going to get putting Jalen Roberts into a bunch of ball screens to give him a chance to blitz on things like handoffs and ball screens, and that means the backside is going to have JoJo Tugler in the half help kind of spot with Ruben Chinyelu. Ruben Chinyelu is a incredible athlete. If you have not seen Florida play yet, he's the big dude. He's listed at 6'11". I bet he's closer to 6'10". He's every bit of 265, 270. He's big. He's strong. And frankly, the way he plays, I talk about this with a lot of guys. He's the most Cougar guy to me on the Florida roster, meaning he plays the most like a Samson era guy on the Florida roster. Big bully, etc. He finishes his shots all around the rim. He ain't doing a whole lot else, and so it's going to keep Tugler near the rim to help with defense and stuff like that. It also means when he helps on the slide, to help out with tag and rollers and stuff like that. You'll have as long as it's an arm's length, and that's a long way for JoJo. As long as it's an arm's length away from Condon, I think, from Chinyelu, I think he'll be okay to get back and play help at the rim. Because as strong as Chinyelu is, he's not soaring up with a 40-inch vertical or anything like that. So I think that's where they'll be there. Interesting to me, though, in this matchup is both teams have a true 8-man rotation. No team in college basketball worth their weight in anything has 9-10. Houston's, I guess, dabbled in that some when they had to, but truthfully, both these teams have a deep 8-man rotation of guys that can all play and play a lot in important minutes. Obviously, with Houston, that's Malik, Arsenault, and Javier. For them, that's Denzel Auberdine, Thomas Ho, and what's the other guy's name? Michael Handelgarten. He's 7'2". They go to their front court, though. They go big when they go to their bench. And I think that when I look at that for them, both teams going to bench for 8-man deep is interesting. They probably play there. It's actually a minute or two more per guy than Houston does. And I think that's kind of earned them the title as one of the deeper teams in America. I actually think that Houston going to guard depth in this will help them a lot. And here's why. I think that offers more varying defenses for the more important players on Florida. Florida needs Walter Clayton to get going. Need Elijah Martin to get going. Houston's got multiple guys that can throw at all of them. If LJ Carrera gets his buckets on Elijah Martin or Walter Clayton Jr., there's not so much more they can, as far as single person one-on-one matchups that they can offer, because they go to the bench and pull a bunch of stiff forwards out. That's a floater game, guys. That's different. And I'm not saying it's easy to shut down Walter Clayton and Elijah Martin, but I like having a lot of options. Right. And so that's, I think, why I think that's an edge for Houston. This is going to be a close game. I don't think either team's going to truly stop the other or anything like that. But I think Houston's got something going here, guys. And they're I'm sure saying the same thing to Brandon on Locked On Gators, and that's fine. I just feel like this is a special season so far, and I feel like there's just something in the water. And I want to get to, I guess, what makes me think that in just a second, because I want to talk about this game as a whole and more holistically, matchups aside, make predictions, do all of that. But today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. Don't want to go too far without reminding you of that, because Monarch Money is here to help you if you ever check your bank account and just wonder, hey, where'd all my money go? Between dining and online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. Give you full visibility and control over all of your finances. And it's a great command center for keeping track of all your accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. If you know anything about me, you know that I love apps that do everything all in one spot. That's what Monarch Money is here for you to do. You can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Again, I like the all in one spot, but it's also really easy to collaborate with your partner and put accounts together and put accounts on the same spot. It's just an app made to make things easier for you. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first order. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first full year. Park Ranger Locked On Cougs, about the Houston Cougars in the national championship game on Monday night against the Florida Gators. And it's so nice to say that. It's so nice to say that. Now, I mentioned this segment, I want to talk about the game holistically and look at what advantages could be, look at some about San Antonio, look at what my final thoughts on this one are for now. Obviously, you follow me on social media at Ainsworth512 on X, Blue Sky, all that kind of stuff. Ainsworth Sports on Instagram. I'll probably be giving out more of those throughout the day as well. But Houston has a lot of advantages in this game. I think first of which is we've seen Houston do this turnaround before. Sweet 16 to Elite 8. They went from a, Purdue game that finished after midnight, electric ending, hard to come down from that high, etc. Just a wild night. In less than 36 hours, they were tipping off against Tennessee, who got the conference championship game in the SEC, and frankly offered a lot of, hard to deal with challenges. And Houston came out and just blitzed, just destroyed Tennessee from the jump in less than 36 hours to turn that around. Now, I don't think that's how this one goes. I think this is a good, close game. But I do think that should give people confidence, like the way Houston can turn around off of a high emotion Saturday night and get ready for a Monday night. I also would point out that this is why you play in the Big 12. You got the intense Saturday afternoon games or the intense Saturday games with a road trip to Kansas. You got to turn around and play Texas Tech or Baylor or somebody on Monday, right? Like those kind of harsh turnarounds are things that you just have gotten ready for and playing in this conference a lot. And so that's a thing that obviously the SEC has their good teams too and all that, But I do think that Houston's ready for this in that sense in a way that they might not have been had they played in the American Athletic Conference, right? That's a difference, a big, big difference. And that's no shade at the American Athletic Conference. That's just the reality of where the programs in both conferences are right now, right? And so I think that's what you see out of this. I also think that another thing that you see out of Houston is if there is any letdown in this game, I feel it's more likely to be on jump shooting. Second intense game in a 48-hour window, shooting in a football stadium, and all that. And both these teams rely heavily on the three, but I think it's more of a piece of the identity of what Florida's doing. Houston's got the great defense to fall back on. I think that travels better in this instance. Travels is not the best word for that, but I think that travels better in this instance. And so I think that that's going to be good for them as well. Now, that's not to say Florida's a bad defense. They're the fourth number one seed overall. They spent part of the year in the top three. They're really good. I don't mean that to dismiss this. It's nothing like that. This is not going to be a blowout. Frankly, I don't know if you want a national championship game to be a blowout. I think that's part of this fun is the journey, right? That being said, I do think Houston pulled this one out. I think that what you'll see here is Milos Uzan has a bounce back game, right? Had foul trouble against Duke, but he had a pretty spectacular tournament to that point. Frankly, I'd point out he'd opened up guarding Rashawn Taylor at SIUE. Guy scores 20 points per game. I know it's in the Ohio Valley Conference, but scoring is scoring at some point. Just shut him down. And then he had Nimbard in round two. And for all of the things that went wrong against Gonzaga, for Houston to still come back and win, that's because they were able to shut down Nimbard for so much of that game. Milos is there too. Braden Smith got his assists, but not his points. And frankly, his life was made chaotic on the other end. Milos had the game winner, but also had a pretty strong game before that as well against Braden Smith. And then Zakai Ziegler didn't know what he was doing against Milos Uzan. You can go back and talk about Caleb Love in Arizona or Jaeger Dimon when they played BYU. Jaeger is a reported lottery pick that maybe trended down from NIL money, but he's still a lottery pick kind of guy if you ask any draft guy about him. Milos has way with him too. And I don't know that he dominates Walter Clayton like that. I don't mean to say that because I don't think it's possible. Walter Clayton's really good. But I do think that Milos is prepared for this challenge. He had a bad Final Four game. I don't think he has two bad games in a row. He hasn't really this season. I mean, maybe in early November. That's it. That's it, right? And I think that Milos turns around. I think the other thing here is that the inverse of that conversation be like, well, Parker, Alex Condon's not going to have two bad games in a row for Florida, and I think that's probably a fair assessment. I don't think he has to have a bad game for Houston to beat them, though. I think he has to have a game where Jaywan Roberts is as much of a deterrent and annoyance with him as he is with anybody. I think Jaywan Roberts and him being The sixth-year guy is going to be important in this one. I'm going to double-check my math here, but Condon is just a sophomore. I believe that's a true sophomore, the Australian kid. I think that's a move for Roberts. Just like we saw him outplay a younger guy in Cooper Flag. I think that works for him as well. And he is a true sophomore, and double-check myself there, right? I also think that you'll see Houston. Okay, so Houston's got a great advantage in this and that they're playing in San Antonio. And it was 68,000 people, and it was a lot of red. It was a lot of people that hate Duke, but it was a lot of red. It feels like it's going to be another sea of red on Monday night with the way people are talking about, finding second chance tickets and this kind of stuff and all of that, making the trip over on I-10. The game doesn't tip off till like 10 to 8. So you guys, if you're in Houston, you could feasibly like leave at 5 and still get there before tip. I think that this is a chance to really do something special in front of the home crowd. And I got some family stuff that eats me up a little bit, so we're here. But I do think that that's a chance for something really, really special, right? And last but not least, I'll say that the focus of this Houston Cougar team is impeccable. They went from on the floor screaming a bunch of things I'm not going to say out loud right now because this is a family-friendly podcast, always family-friendly podcast. All of that, high levels of excitement, on top of the world. And it was before they stepped off the floor on Saturday. Like, the floor in Alamo Dome is raised because it's in a football stadium, and you have to go downstairs. It was 3 or 4 steps before they approached the stairs that the mood went from screaming, excited, what a night, to one more. And they went from screaming, excited, what a night, to one more, and dapping up Hakeem Olajuwon, Jim Nance, Ladiki Giroux was there. You've seen the videos that have gone viral now with Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shed, all these recent alumni players getting excited for Samson, the guys. They understand and understood the moment the game was over that this is not the end-all be-all. They got more work to do. And I think for what it's worth, you saw the same thing against Purdue. You saw the same thing against the big one to go for Gonzaga. You saw the same thing in the Big 12 tournament when they beat Arizona. They've got more work to do. They've been looking forward to this Monday night game for a lot of them since they started talking to Samson about coming to Houston. And I think that that's got a lot more gravitas than we realize. And we'll do recaps of the season when the season's over. And the nice thing about playing the title game, that's still so great. The nice thing about playing the title game, just throwing that out casually. The nice thing about Houston being in the title game, it's so nice to say, is that we can start talking about, like, hey, we'll start recapping the season that was and the historic year and all that was on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We don't have to like put hypotheticals on it. We know that it'll all come later. But right now, these Cougs are in the moment. And I think that's really special. And I don't know how you coach that, but Samson does. And he's got them there. And that's why he's going for win number 800 as a collegiate coach, his 300th at Houston. He's got guys like Jawan Roberts going for his 150th win at the University of Houston. I think there's a real chance. We'll be live after the game here on Locked On Cougs on YouTube. So if you're listening to us on audio platforms, or if you're on YouTube and hadn't done it yet, hit subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we're going live. We're going to be live to enjoy the year that was after this one is over. What a freaking season. One more to go. Let's go get it done. Go Cougs, man. Go Cougs. Locked On Cougs is primarily Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day, sometimes multiple times a day like today because there's just too much to talk about. Go Cougs.